Welcome back to Tri-City Sports Now. I'm Marky Billson, continuing a theme of the previous segment where I discussed, what did I discuss? Oh, yes, I discussed baseball, that's right. And how the attendance was down, even at winning teams. Teams having good seasons so far. Thousands of fans a game. Now, part of the reason is going to be, and I mention this because of the weather, which has been atrocious. And, you know, why these early season games are being played at this time of year. You know, no one in northern climates are not in domes and not in warm weather facilities. And if you have to, you know, just break it up occasionally to have, you know, games in New York, well, then have weekend games where they can all be in the daytime. Yeah, even on a Friday. Have your Friday opener there at Citi Field for the Mets or what have you. Mets, by the way, off to their best start ever. That's right, ever. Mets always win on opening day. But now, they're off to their best start, you heard me, ever. And I meant, you know, so that's a circumstance. Now, we know that Rob Manfred, the baseball commissioner, not much of one if you ask me, has been trying all kinds of radical rules changes to speed up pace of play. Intentional walks, no, just point him down to first. Limiting the amount of time that you can go out to the mound to talk, which I think actually will increase the time of game. This is what will happen, we got to do for pace of play. Here are the things you have to do. You want to know what you have to do? Okay, first of all, get rid of the DH. I'm dead serious about this. You've got to endorse a philosophy of outs are our friends. Because the more outs you have and the fewer base runners, the quicker the ball game is going to go. It's hand in hand. That's the way it goes. Outs are our friends. We see soccer games that go 1-0. Millennials love soccer. They're not there to see the scoring. They're there because they know the game's going to be over in 2 hours. Now, baseball is not going to be a rigidly timed game. No sports like that. Even clock sports are not rigidly timed. I mean, my cry out loud, we saw Vegas Golden Knights going for a series sweep. You know where they probably won this series? The second game of the their first round Stanley Cup, when they won in double overtime against the Kings. That was the backbreaker. They were up 2-0. Yeah. And the Kings had to wonder, what do we have to do to beat this expansion team? That was the backbreaker. Well, that game was unlimited in time. The beauty of a hockey overtime game in the playoffs. The beauty of a baseball game that goes 14 innings or longer. And the thing is, that's excitement. That's a close game. We'll sell you the whole seat, but you only need the edge. That's not 19-2. That's not the American League 10-3 game. Which is what the DH gives us. And I mentioned this before. Not only are American League games shorter in length of time, look it up. You'll say, oh, it's only about 5 minutes, Marky. Look at what the games were before the DH was adopted. 2.5 hours. But what's happened is that the DH has given us the mid-inning pitching change. Where before you said, well, let's see here. I got a pinch hitter coming up there. I hate to use up a relief pitcher when, let's go, dude. Yeah, let's see if he can get it up. And that created, instead of a lengthy pitching change and a pitcher who may or may not get the next hitter out, a speedier ball game. All sorts of factors that occurred as well. But another thing, I think, is the lack of playing for the one run. The inside game. The fundamentals. And this is why we're seeing baseball turning into home run derby. Just ask Aaron Judge. All right. Let me give you this example here. And this was researched by a sports writer by the name of Mike, what is his name? Exixa? Mike Exixa. I want to give him the proper credit for this. Please bear with me. But Exixa, and he spells his name, in case I'm not pronouncing it right, A-X-I-S-A. Axisa? Okay. But good old Mike has come up with some figures, and he has found out that in every plate appearance coming up this season, hitters are striking out almost a quarter of the time. 22.6% of the time. Meanwhile, they're also walking a lot. 9.2% of the time. Now, those figures are up 5 years ago, less than 20%, 19.9, but we'll just say 20% of at-bats ended in a strikeout, plate appearances, and 7.7 of them ended in a walk. Hitters are becoming more selective. We talk, there's the idea of trying to, get the pitch count and coax it. Okay, we get that. But the thing is, taking pitches and not putting the ball in play, that also leads to a less exciting game. Remember, Jerry Glanville once bashed baseball. It's my favorite sport. But what he once said was, it's two guys playing catch while 7 other guys wait around. I mean, if you really wanted to go into it, we could make a similar, nasty comment about football or whatever, but nevertheless, that was his take. But I bring that up because that's kind of what it's becoming. How do you stop this? I'm sure that Rob Manfred will do something like now make the rules 3 balls and 2 strikes and you're out. Which, by the way, I believe there are high schools in Michigan that play with that rule. Believe it or not. There you go. But what I think you got to do in this case is simply put, you've got to have a big strike zone. You've got to have hitters come up there looking to swing, knowing that when the ball is pitched, more than likely it's going to be a strike. It's that way already, but they really have to be defensive of the plate. Now, maybe that means more foul balls. I don't know, but I mean, that's a product of the game. Still, you've got to have some sort of emphasis in fewer strikeouts, fewer walks, more getting the ball in play. More, I like that pitch on the first one, I'm going to swing at it rather than take a strike while you're behind. Which I know is baseball parlance, but nevertheless, how often do you see it, not happening anyway? That sort of thing. Anyway, this is the circumstance. What do you do to keep the pace of play to get the millennial fan involved? You don't have to put a runner at second base to begin the 10th inning. That's stupid. You don't have to put in a pitch clock. The beauty of baseball is there is no clock. Enforce the rule already on the book. Have them throw the pitch within 20 seconds or call a ball. Or I guess it's 15 if nobody's on. And if you got to have the umpires go 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi in their head, well, then do it. You don't need a pitch clock. I happen to think you put a pitch clock up, you're going to see what's happening in the minors when they have put the pitch clock up, which is pitchers just milk all the amount of time they have between pitches instead of get ball, throw ball, which is like what a Bob Gibson would do, or a Zane Smith. I know there's a big difference between Zane Smith and Bob Gibson, but they were both known as fast workers. So this is what I think you need to do in baseball instead of all these gimmicks. The final thing on why attendance might be down this year by so much is, in addition to weather, in addition to, yes, a different way that we are playing the game, it's now more home run derby than ever before, and so we lose fundamentals, but I think there's an overwhelming philosophy, and Manfred has brought this upon himself, that there's something wrong with the game that needs to be changed. And really, I think Bud Selig brought that to us. Why we've got to change the fact that we have 2 leagues and, the Mets and Yankees don't play each other. Even though that'll kill interest in the Tri-Cities because it will limit the amount of times the Braves and Reds will play each other. But New York's more important than we are. Remember that. Yeah, that makes us feel real good, huh? Or you have a circumstance where you have, the idea the game takes too long. So we're going to make all these rules instead of doing something that everyone would applaud, like shortening the amount of time between commercial breaks, which, by the way, we've done, and having more live in-game reads by the broadcasters. Make as much money. I think the advertising is more effective that way. Anyway, or the third thing, as I said, just the feeling that there's something wrong with the game. There's something wrong with the Cleveland Indians logo. We've got to change that, even though it's been around for 70 years. By the way, did you see this? That they had a Jackie Robinson hat. It had Cleveland Indians hat. It had Chief Wahoo on it. And on the side, there was a 42 and a Jackie Robinson logo. And a couple of extremist sports writers just had a cow over it. And I guess it got taken off the market. Which is unfortunate, because the guy that commissioned the drawing of Chief Wahoo back in 1947, Bill Veeck, is also the owner that hired Larry Doby, the first black player in the American League. So actually that logo has, something to do with the breaking of color barriers in Major League Baseball. But there's something wrong with it. It's got to be taken off next year of the Indians' caps. You don't think Indians fans are going to be revolting against that? Because basically you've just told them that for the last 70 years they're nothing but a bunch of racists. You don't think that Indians fans are going to, say, well, to hell with you then? Especially the casual ones who haven't bought season tickets. You think that with that environment, even with the team winning 8-6, they're going to want to buy a ticket on a cold weather day to see a game that, what does it mean right now? It's early season. We'll wait until July when the weather is nicer. These are the problems with baseball drawing attendance. And I can't believe they can't figure this out. I really can't. And the philosophy they need to have, like I said, outs are our friends. If you want to speed up the game, and I think they should. I also think there are too many teams in the playoffs. I mean, we could go into, but that's the whole thing. And if there's something wrong with baseball, maybe it's because you can no longer say it's the same game it was 100 years ago. I used to say that all the time. DHs, livelier balls, different ballparks, no longer the big center field. You don't have ballparks cut into city blocks, maybe an exception being Wrigley Field and Fenway Park, but that have some sort of quirky design. Fenway Park still does, but like the Polo Grounds or Ebbets Field or something like that. All those things are gone. We have an overemphasis in relief pitching, an overemphasis in home runs. It's not the same game it once was. The game never had 12 and 13-man pitching staffs before. So, pitchers are asked to throw, not pitch in these days. It's another reason why you have less balls in play now. The big center field and all this, you could afford to throw a fat pitch up to the number 8 hitter. He was just going to sky it to center field. You had a rabbit in there. Boom, he pockets it, 8 unassisted. That was pitching. But I guess in the big money era, you got to go for the strikeout and, get paid for your strikeouts per innings ratio, right? So this is some of the things that are absolutely, you want to talk about what's killing baseball. There you go. And they refuse to look at those. The ultimate thing, and I've said this before, forgive me for going on and on, what you need to do is realize that baseball was the number one sport, say, 1960. What did you have in 1960? Well, you had an even schedule. You had a real rivalry between the leagues because they didn't play. You didn't have all these gimmicks that we've had in recent years. And you know what? If the game was pure and perfect back then, and it was the number one sport in America, maybe you ought to go back to what you were doing right instead of doubling down on what you're doing wrong with the gimmick rule of the day, Mr. Rob Manfred. What do you think about that? Tri-City Sports Now. There are football rules changes that I will tell you about, and also I will emphasize the importance of live reads when we return on Tri-Cities Sports Now. Hey, by the way, guys, Worth Peak, it's good to see you. I haven't talked to you in a while. I'd love to. I got to do that here real soon and give you a call. Rich Kupka, I believe you are the owner of Kupka's on the south side. Is that correct? Where Tunch and Wolf would do their show, and you've had some sports talk shows. I would love to hear your feedback on mine, because to be brutally honest with you, I'd love to do a sports talk show in Pittsburgh again. Nothing against where I'm at right now and all this, but and I hope that some Tri-Cities listeners won't be offended by that, but absolutely, that's a tremendous passion of mine, just as much as it was a passion, probably even more so than, say, the beginning of the show, when I looked up the records of Hal Greer and found out that he was probably the greatest basketball player to ever play in Johnson City. So, you know, I do that in Pittsburgh, too. Let me tell you about some interesting historical Pittsburgh stuff. Worth will be able to tell you that I know that as well. But anyway, I look forward to talking to you guys both here in the future.